Hey, welcome back to the channel, my fellow weather junkies. I'm your host, meteorologist Greg Majeski, your trusted weather source, bringing you the weather without all that social media hype here on your Valentine's Day, February 14th, 2025. Let's go ahead and take a look at what we're tracking here for today as we're looking at a severe weather setup here for the Deep South as we go into your Saturday and Sunday. We'll get into the latest updates from the Storm Prediction Center on that one. We're also going to be talking about a big polar invasion setting up for a big chunk of the country with a lot of areas seeing below zero temperatures. We'll look at the latest model details on that. And then we're also going to track with that cold air potential for some more winter weather. We'll get the latest updates on winter storms and where you could potentially see some snow falling in your areas. All right, before we get going, we'd like to welcome any new visitors here on the page. Welcome. And if you haven't yet decided to subscribe just yet, please do so at this time. Hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you're alerted on future content. As always, if you appreciate the report, please leave me a comment down below. Give me a thumbs up. I do appreciate the support. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at what we're seeing here on our satellite imagery here to begin our day. We're not bad here in the east, kind of quiet. Things are quiet here. Here's our developing storm system here in the middle of the country as all this energy that kind of slammed into California yesterday begins to move off out of the Rockies and spreading some snows out there for right now. West Coast, we'll see things begin to steadily improve after that very big monster storm plowed into that area yesterday. It looks like they got a few days to kind of dry out a little bit out there for now. All right, looking at the national surface map as far as where we're seeing our watches and warnings out, obviously we're anticipating of some very heavy rains here stretching from Arkansas up into West Virginia, some winter weather advisories up in the Northeast, obviously numerous winter weather advisories and winter storm warnings out here into the Intermountain region as well. These brown areas are for wind advisories. All right, let's go ahead and look at the surface map. We've got high pressure here along the East Coast, kind of chilly here with the single digits and teens and some 20s down into the Deep South. We're getting a little bit of a respite here in the middle of the country. It's cold, but we're not seeing the below zero stuff we were seeing just a couple days ago. But don't worry, that's coming back. And obviously, we're tracking this storm system out here in the Intermountain region as this thing begins to eject out into the plains. And then we're going to watch it really become a bit of a headache, especially across the Deep South with a pretty good strong, looks like a line of thunderstorms that's going to be moving across, say, Mississippi, Alabama, moving into Georgia as we go into your Saturday night and Sunday. Looking at the local radar here, starting on the West Coast with that big onshore flow. Boy, I would see some of the reports up here in the Sierra Nevada that they're measuring this stuff in feet. Several feet of snow up in the Sierra Nevada as that big monster storm system kind of plowed in here across California. So looks like things here will begin to improve, but I'm sure avalanche warnings will be a bit of a problem, especially after all the heavy snows that they saw here over the last 24 hours. Now, we are still going to be tracking that storm system as it ejects out of the Rockies, and we'll bring in some thunderstorms with it. So our day one outlook here, and this will probably, a lot of the thunderstorms here you're seeing out here, like from Kentucky down here toward Texas, this will probably be more heading toward tomorrow morning. We got a little pocket out here during the day here for Utah, Arizona, and into the Four Corners region. But the main concern is going to be for tomorrow. So let's go ahead and break down our day two outlook here. And we'll show you where the main threats are going to be. So here's your category breakdown here as we've got this enhanced area for severe weather. That's our bullseye zone there across Louisiana, Mississippi, kind of getting in parts of Alabama there, surrounded by that slight risk there in the yellow and the marginal in the green. So let's break down the categories here. Obviously, the tornado threat is going to be the highest there. And then that yellow zone, that is where we're going to see that 10% chance for some severe weather. It would not shock me if this potentially gets upgraded to a potential moderate risk before we get into tomorrow, but we'll see how that works out for us. Hail threat, it's going to be there as across Louisiana, Arkansas, and into Mississippi. You're seeing that in that yellow zone right through there. And as far as the wind threat, that'll be the big thing. That'll be plowing here with those straight line winds, especially. There's a very strong low-level jet in here. So looking at that red, that's getting into 30% that you're going to see some gusty winds, probably in excess of 60 to 70 miles per hour along that line. And as that line traverses into Alabama and Georgia, those heavy, strong winds will be moving into those regions as well. Now, by the time we get to day three outlook, it looks like that system will be weakening, which is showing a marginal risk for severe weather here up and down the East Coast from Virginia down toward the Florida Panhandle as that system begins to eject on out and move on off the eastern seaboard. Now, of course, along with this, we're going to have to deal with some very heavy rains as well. It'll be starting here kind of late today, going into tomorrow morning. You're seeing a little pocket there across Arkansas and Tennessee. But tomorrow, it really picks up in earnest. You saw where those flash flood watches are? Well, that's because of this. Look at that right there. Got a big bullseye of moderate risk for some flooding. there from the Ohio River Valley heading back into northern Mississippi. That's our bullseye, where we can see upwards of 5-6 inches of rain in a very short amount of time in that zone. So let's go ahead and talk about what's driving this severe weather. We're going to look at the jet stream first here, as we're going to be watching this storm system. It's this dip in the jet stream here that's going to be ejecting and moving off in toward the east. That's going to be setting this up. So as we go ahead and take this forward throughout the day, Friday's not looking bad for a lot of the country, except for where that moisture is coming out of the Rockies. But going into Saturday, it's going to get very, very interesting. Obviously, when you see a dip in the jet stream kind of like this, I mean, that's a very strong jet stream here that's moving like this. So you got a lot of wind shear in here, winds that are changing with height, and you got the clash of the air masses. You got the cold air plowing into that warmer air. And as it goes into Sunday morning, this is in a bit of a negative tilt, negative configuration. And when it's in a negative configuration like that, you typically get some very strong and powerful thunderstorms that we're going to be seeing moving in across the southeast. Now, the good news is this moves on out, but as it does so, a bit of that polar low is going to be dropping down. This is showing up even at the 300 millibar level. This is the low here, and it's going to be really ejecting some very cold air going into Tuesday and Wednesday of next week as this moves on through. So it really dives down some very cold air down here. So look at where that low is sitting up here across the high plains, and we're going to be bringing in some brutally cold air in here going toward Wednesday back behind that system. So next week's going to be seeing, we're going to be talking about temperatures some 50 to 60 degrees below normal in some cases with this system. And that'll be lingering for most of the week. And then it starts to slowly pull out toward the weekend. And then we just got some minor systems here looking at the long range here. And it does appear as we go into the last week of February that we got a couple of cold shots, some minor systems coming in. There's one here showing up with the 25th here, kind of moving in across the southeast. And then we'll see things begin to moderate, I think, a little bit across the country as the cold air begins to retreat back into Canada. And we kind of see more of a zonal westerly flow here kind of kicking in across the country as we wrap up the month of February. So let's go ahead and talk about this storm system that we're going to be watching. Again, we're watching this system here. We're looking at your high resolution model data here as this begins to move on off. And you're going to watch this zone in here, especially where the rains and eventually a very powerful looking squall line is going to start to form here. So watch that timestamp in the upper right hand corner as we kind of take you through this. Again, going throughout the day today is not bad. We got the snows and rains out into the west and they're on the Gulf Coast, but today's not bad for your Valentine's Day. Tomorrow, a different set of story though. As we go overnight, again, you're going to see the moisture here increasing out of the Gulf of Mexico as the storm system begins to shift off toward the west there. Seeing the snows there across the Great Lakes going into the early morning hours here on Saturday. And then we're going to watch this squall line begin to form here as we go into later in the afternoon. So looking at a pretty good strong system here, starting to line up here with these storms here that are going to be tracking across the southeast. As we get into the later afternoon hours tomorrow, especially across Mississippi, I feel we'll have to be dealing with a potential tornado threat here. But a very strong and powerful line of storms will be traversing Alabama at night, which is always very dangerous. And then it looks like it'll be coming into Georgia during the early morning hours. So you got a very strong line of showers and thunderstorms, and there'll be numerous probably tornado watches and things up in that area as this moves on through. Now going over to the European models, we go and take you through this. This is a little bit slower on the European, but it does clear this through as we go throughout the day on Sunday morning. So by 10 o'clock in the morning, it starts to move on off, and we get that initial cool down. Now, once we're done with that, we're going to be watching this big boy up here. This is our polar vortex, and it is going to be having eyes to really dive in the very cold air behind this system as this goes through. Now, obviously, as this thing's exiting on Sunday, we got the snow component to this. It's the freezing rain here going across into the northeast. But as this thing moves on off, we'll see that cold air really dive down here across the country. And we're going to watch this next winter system here. All right, there's still a lot of uncertainty with this, and part of this is because of the extreme cold coming in. The models have a hard time with this setting up. So this could be a southern snow event here, and depending on exactly where the cold air sets up will dictate where this winter precipitation will form out, because this is very, very cold air. Look at that polar low here sitting here across the Dakotas here as we go into your Wednesday morning, and we're talking some bitterly cold temperatures well below zero. The wind chill factor is going to be quite significant. This pulls on across the south. So right now it shows we got a snow here on the northern tier of this. How far south does this get? That's going to be dependent on this track. There's a Gulf low that's going to form here and track along the Gulf Coast. And exactly that track, where it sets up, will dictate where the snow is going to fall. So this moves right along the Gulf Coast. We get a little snow on the back side of this, again, as the polar low here starts to pull off. Here's our polar low here. Here's our low system here. I tell you, if these things ever phased up, we could see a monster storm. Right now, it does not phase the upper level cold core with the surface low, but if it did, boy, you're talking about a one heck of a storm that would go up into the northeast. Right now, it's not showing that, but I'm just kind of pointing out, boy, this thing could have been a real monster had they got kind of locked up together. This moves on off. We can see some snows across North Georgia going into Thursday morning in the mid-Atlantic, and then it kind of moves on off. And then after that, we settle down a bit. Looks like the pattern settles down. Not any major storm systems here across the country, except for here we got another little system out here on the west coast going in toward the 22nd and 23rd of February. And as we go ahead and take a look at how the projection is, again, we're going beyond 10 days here. The trend right now is for no major real systems. You've got some minor systems here. As you can see, here's another little clipper here, bringing some snows across the areas of the Midwest going in toward the 26th. Just kind of reinforcing shots of cold air like that coming into the southeast, going into the 27th. And then we finally got another storm system here coming in out of the west coast here toward the end of the model run, going toward the 1st, out of here toward the west. Some weak showers here in the middle of the country. And it does appear that the jet stream begins to move, or the cold air begins to retreat further up toward the north as we get ready to enter into the new month of March. All right, we're talking about the precipitation amounts here. Let's go ahead and look at this for the next 3 days here. Let me back this up a little bit. As you can see, the next 3 days will be across the southeast. This is where our heaviest rains are going to fall here. Obviously, that's where the flooding threat's going to be in that area. And then as we go out for the next 10 days, you can see the next storm system will be kind of coming in. Boom, here's the next one right along the Gulf Coast. And some of that will be snow, obviously, going into Wednesday and Thursday. Then beyond that, not a whole lot of precipitation is going to fall across a lot of the country here. I'm just going to take it out to about 10 days right there. But there you can see where it's going to be wet and where they're going to be getting. Obviously, a little bit here across the Pacific Northwest and a big areas here into the east. Now, as far as the snow totals are concerned here, we'll go for the next 3 days. We got two different winter storms we're kind of tracking here. We got the one here with that big storm system that's going to bring it into severe weather. There'll be a little bit of snow with this. You see this kind of falling up here across the areas of the Great Lakes, and this will move in toward the northeast, obviously ejecting from the snows that it dumps there in the Intermountain region for today. All right, so this moves into the northeast. You get some snows there across New England going through the weekend. Some pretty good snows here in the upstate. Looks like upwards of 6 inches plus there in the pink for the northeast. That's system number one. Then as we head toward Wednesday of this week, we're going to watch our next system. There it goes right there. Starts flaring up some snows across Kansas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. And some of this might sneak into the further south. So again, you see the snows here kind of lighting up here very lightly, not a lot, here across portions of Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia. We'll see how that works out. But it looks like some very heavy snows kind of erupting there across areas of the mid-Atlantic once again. So it looks like Virginia, Maryland, West Virginia in the crosshairs going Wednesday and Thursday with that snow coming through there. And then once that goes by, not going to see a whole lot more in with this. Going back out to the edge of this run, you got a couple minor systems coming on in, but that's it. Those are the two major systems we're going to be tracking. Now, the big story I got to feel is really got to be this cold air that's coming in. We're talking bitterly cold. This is a snapshot of Wednesday morning. We're talking on the 19th. You see all this gray in here? This is below zero temperatures up here. Up here, we're talking about 30 degrees below zero up here into Montana. So some very, very cold air with this, even some below zero little chunks here across areas of New England and some of the Great Lakes as well. But that's where this is setting up. And check out the snapshot here of that day. We're talking areas here, a lot of areas here, 40 degrees below normal. I even see one up here. Here's one up here, 58, 59 degrees below normal here with this cold air. So this is some serious business as it's coming in, and definitely life-threatening in some cases. So this is probably the coldest air mass of the season that we've seen dropping down for this winter. So let's go ahead and track this as we're going to look at your temperature anomaly map here. As we track this, the clash of air masses obviously coming in for this weekend. Here is that cold front, and the initial cold front here with the warm air and the cold air driving in. That's what's going to set up that severe weather going into Saturday and Sunday. It does do the initial cool down on Sunday across a lot of the south, but then we're going to see a big chunk of this. Here is part of that polar vortex low that's going to drop down and really just squat here across the areas of the west. I mean, look how much of the country here as we go in toward Wednesday the 19th, again, seeing temperatures running some 30 to 40 degrees plus with below normal temperatures. And this will eventually begin to move off toward the east a little bit as we go into Thursday. You see a big chunk of the country still on Thursday, seeing, I'd say about 40% of the country seeing temperatures some 30 to 40 degrees below normal. I mean, that's just unreal. And then this moves off toward the east, starts to moderate a little bit going toward Friday, but still is going to Friday and Saturday, a big chunk of the country still looking at below normal temperatures. Now, going into the last week of the month, we'll start to see things begin to moderate a little bit. Mostly in the east, we stay below normal. We're clearly warming up out here in the west. The high plains begins to warm up again as the temperatures get more on the mild side. And we got a couple of little minor shots coming down, like the 25th there across the southeast, but nothing like we're going to see, obviously, this week. But temperatures definitely moderating a bit here as we kind of wrap up the model run here. Still looking at below normal there across the southeast going into the 27th and the 28th. And then finishing it out here a little bit, looks like we start to cool things off here in the west. Warm up here in the middle of the country, still a little bit of cool air across the areas of the northeast. All right, let's go look at the Climate Prediction Center to see if that kind of lines up with what we're seeing here. Again, this is obviously a no-brainer here going out from the 6th through the 10th with that below normal temperatures in this area, a little bit milder here out in the west. And as far as the continuing into this to the 21st to the 27th, cooler here in the east. We're starting to moderate here in the west, and I think this will be slowly chipping away here as we get ready to enter into the month of March. Precipitation-wise, what's interesting is that we've got above normal precipitation. Again, you had that big area below normal temperature. So do we get any kind of winter weather in here across the deep south? Remains to be seen. We'll watch this very closely, see how this develops. But once the system toward the middle of the week on Wednesday and Thursday ejects on out, check what happens here. Boom, coast to coast. We're kind of shutting out the flow. We got a very, very dry weather pattern here, at least as we wrap up the month of February, just maybe a little bit above normal there across Florida, South Texas, Northwest, but that's about it here as we wrap up the month of February and get ready to start off and head off into March. And boy, I tell you, February, when I teased it back at the beginning of the month, we knew it was going to be a chaotic month, and it sure has lived up to the billing. We've had tale of two seasons. We had the first part of the month where it looked like we were, fall, spring was in the air for a big part of the country. Now we got this one more, basically last gasp of winter weather here to finish up the month of February. So I definitely wanted to tell folks to stay advised on that severe weather for tomorrow. If you do not have one of these Midland weather radios, a good idea to get one of these. Make sure you have that. Get ready for a severe weather season. If you got your favorite weather app, make sure you download that on your phone as well. Just make sure you leave it on, especially at night, because those nighttime tornadoes and severe weather can be nightmares, that's for sure, when folks are sleeping and the unexpected kind of hits you in the middle of the night. All right, that's your update here on your Valentine's Day. Hope you have a great day with your significant other. Otherwise, you guys take it easy. We'll see you back in here for tomorrow for our next update. Till then, you all be good, stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Have a good day, folks. Bye-bye.